Welcome back, everybody. We are continuing our BFI London Film Festival 2020 coverage, even though it's finished, and I feel very sad. Look at it, it's Sean. Hey, Sean.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
You sad that it's over?
I am sad that it's over. I had this real yum yuck emotion of I want more, but I feel like my brain is quite full of visual information. It was great. I loved it. I think it's actually been a really fab season. I think the festival's been phenomenal. Some really good work. So yeah, I am sad, but I am also wouldn't it be nice not to watch a film today?
I know, yeah, to have a little bit of a breather.
Have a little break.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've absolutely loved it. Although I was talking to my friend Dina, who's been helping out on some of these review videos, on previous videos. She's got some more coming up as well. And she said, there aren't many videos that are uplifting. And I actually thought, wow, I'd never thought of that, really. But I guess it's the mood of the times, isn't it? And you can imagine what it's going to be like next year, even more downbeat, probably.
Of course.
But there have been quite a few hard-hitting films.
Comment, actually. I haven't thought about it. There have been some movies that I've warmed to, actually. But yeah, you're right. The general tone has been it's been quite gritty and quite real.
Yeah, quite reflective. Yeah.
Very true, actually.
Today's movie, I'm not going to say anything at the moment because I've got a habit of doing that, of saying, oh yeah, I loved it. I hated it right at the very beginning, which spoils the surprise a little bit. But it is a film with an amazing cast. I have to say that. Kate Winslet, Saoirse Ronan. I'm a big fan of both of those actresses. Are you a fan of those two?
I love them both. And I also love Fiona Shaw,
yes,
who has a role in the movie. I mean, Ammonite for me was... Well, let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, let's talk about the story. First of all, I've been to Lyme Regis. Have you been there?
I haven't, but I really want to go now.
I've been fossil hunting in Lyme Regis, which is even more of a woo! It's a woo moment. I'm just showing off now. Although I didn't look like Kate Winslet. I didn't have that, that outfit on, same costume. Yeah, it was about 10 years ago when I went. Not back in the 1840s.
Not the 1840s.
I'm not that old.
It is quite, for me, it was the last film of the festival for me. So it was a really, I think, very poignant full stop for how the festival has been.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, it follows the story of Mary Annie, who was kind of a proto-archaeologist in 1840. She trawls the beaches of Lyme Regis looking for fossils and ammonites. And is revered in her industry. But strangely so, being a woman at that time, you see a lot of her work appearing in the British Museum, but rebadged, which is a point of contention, and rightly so. And I found her character quite amazing. She was so matter of fact, and a woman of few words, but highly expressive. And for me, Kate Winslet does a phenomenal job in that role. I mean, I thought it's one of my favorite roles I've seen her play. I thought she was absolutely brilliant.
I completely agree. I think it's the most... I don't know, because she doesn't have much dialogue. There's not much that she has to say, but she's just so... You get that sense that she's a bit of a loner, a bit kind of doesn't really want that many people around fussing. She gets on with things. And she really puts that across, I think. But then when you do see her smile, it's like a torch has been lit, just very briefly. And yes, I think she goes from those emotions really well. It's almost like a sudden switch, but it doesn't feel jarring. It feels like, oh wow, you really see a side of her personality. But I thought her performance was fantastic in this.
Yeah. She's a hard-working woman, She's from a big family. You realise there's been a lot of loss in her family with her siblings.
Yeah.
She lives with her mother. Her father has died. It reminded me in a way of, I think Francis Lee did a very good job of this, which is, when you think about God's Own Country, you have people working on a farm. It's hard work. Your day is consumed with the work, and there's very little time for anything else. And you get the same feeling in this film, which is, her life is walking the shores, looking for fossils, selling some of the small pieces in a family shop, but she's consumed by the work, and there's very little space for love or emotion.
Yeah, and she's quite a tough woman. I mean, she's a tough woman. You see her putting her safety at risk, and I know in real life she was a woman who did put her safety at risk. She is a woman that just gets on with things, and you see her at the beginning of this film sliding down, the rock face.
Yeah. I mean, Saoirse Ronan puts in a solid performance, as does Fiona Shaw. I just found Kate Winslet so enticing in the movie that she kind of owns it. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, no, I thought the same.
Cast.
I love Saoirse Ronan normally. In this, for some reason, she wasn't the highlight for me, and I kept hearing her slipping back into her Irish accent. And I'm not criticising her at all, because I love her as an actor, and I couldn't do the same myself. I'm not an actor, but I kept hearing that Irish coming through, and for me, that was a little distracting. And I wanted to just kind of, I don't know, I just wanted to feel the character more, but I just kept hearing that, and it kept slipping me out. But yeah, Kate Winslet definitely was the real strong force in this, I thought.
And there's something unspoken which I like about the film, because I'm not going to give too much away, but she has history with another one of the supporting, a historic, what seems to be frisson with another character, and you get the sense that it's more public knowledge than is acknowledged. And I think part of why she kind of like hunkers down, and her mother is obviously aware of it. I believe her mother's aware of it. Is because of the times. This is a lesbian relationship, and you get the sense that there's water gone under the bridge, and she is a lesser person for it. And I think I find that super interesting.
I want to ask you about that, because there is a controversy surrounding the real life story of Mary Anning, and a lot of people, particularly her family, have been saying that she wasn't a lesbian at all, and there was no same-sex relationships in her life. And I think in her diaries she never touched on that. That's what I'm led to believe, is that it's kind of almost made for Hollywood. It's almost like made for sensationalism of making it into a drama, which I suppose you have to do to a certain extent if you're telling a story but in a different way. For me, it never really felt like it was her life story. It felt like it was a story about her relationship, and about her relationship with people as well.
Totally. I mean, you get some of her kind of prose in the film about some of her written diaries, which are very beautifully written. It's a central story about who she is as the person, what she gave to the scientific community, and how she operated. And so in some ways, Frances Lee does a great job of focusing on Kate Winslet, and maybe, as I say, to the impact of other actors in the film. I'd say I love Fiona Shaw, but you never really see Fiona Shaw really stretch herself to what we know we can do, you know what I mean? And the same with Saoirse Ronan. So it's very interesting. Now, I forget the name of her mother, but she also acted in God's Own Country.
Oh yeah, Gemma Jones.
Gemma Jones.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, also fantastic. So I loved it. I thought it was tender. I thought it was vulnerable. It's one of my favourite roles I've seen Winslet act in.
What about the sex scenes? Because I know the sex scenes, I mean, this bores me to a certain extent, because people will talk about those. They're a very important part of this film, because obviously it's about the relationship. But some people will be cynical about those sex scenes, because they say they're just included just to make people talk about the film, which I suppose you have to do, and it could be a good thing for Frances Lee, because obviously that would get the word out. But I just wonder if people will be cynical about the inclusion of those scenes. Almost in the same as Brokeback Mountain was. I suppose people just always refer back to those scenes, which was a real shame, because it was a film that was good for other reasons, not just because of that. But obviously it's an important part of that film. Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. The sex scenes are quite graphic.
They're quite full on, aren't they?
Very real, and so that did take me by surprise.
Yeah,
because I thought it was something that was going to be alluded to, some kind of behind closed doors, but they are quite material sex scenes.
And I think it's great that he talked about. Yeah, I think it's amazing that he's done those scenes in that way, because it's real life, and I think he should have done it like that. But people will say, you don't need to include those, but I think you do. But there is cynicism around that, obviously, because people will say they're just put in there for that reason. But I don't think that. I think he's obviously done it for a different reason.
Well, I think there's been several films recently where I think about the relationship between two individuals. I think at times the sex scene is often the make or break in my mind about believability about the two characters. About the two actors. And there've been other films recently, we've talked about them, where for me that's kind of like the nail in the coffin, because it just isn't believable. I did not get that from that. I felt something that was they clearly worked with intimacy specialists, because it was believable. You sense the passion, you sense the lust,
I think that's why I asked you that question, because I thought that's what your reaction was going to be. I knew you were going to say that, and I felt the same. I felt like it was very believable, and I think for that reason, I think that's why it was important. Another reason why it was important. I love the sound design as well. The waves crashing, the footsteps walking on wooden floors. I thought the sound was really crisp and really it came out.
Yeah,
I think it needed to.
And also the way they captured. I mean, it's a cruel coastline.
Yeah.
Right, and so some of those scenes where, like, Kate Winslet is being, pulled from pillar to post. It's windy, it's raining, and I think he did a really good job, Francis Lee, of kind of demonstrating it wasn't her strolling along a beach with the sun out every day, like with a bucket pulling nice shells off the ground. It was hard work, and I think he portrays that so well. I also have to say, I think the costume design was fantastic. I did hear that someone that maybe you and I both know, Dominic Young, worked on some of the costume design for that film, which is phenomenal. I thought it was great. I thought the look was really fantastic. And there were some clever bits, with the elements where Mary Anning comes up to London. I think that was staged really beautifully.
Yeah.
The docks and whatnot. So I think the supporting team also did a really phenomenal job of driving that atmosphere that you're describing.
I think it made me fascinated about someone's life as well. A bit like Mike Leigh when he did Mr. Turner. I didn't really know much about his life, even though I've been to art school, but I was fascinated more about kind of delving back into how he was as a person. And it's the same with Mary Anning as well, because I feel like now I want to find out more about her, because I hadn't really known much about her before. So I think in some ways it's educational as well as entertainment. I think it's, that's not obviously the reason for it, because it's meant to be both, but I like that factor of it, the factor that it made me want to find out more. Yeah, one of my favourite films at the LFF this year.
Agreed, same, absolutely.
9 out of 10 for me.
Okay, I'm going to agree. Now, I'm right on the cusp of 8 and 9, but I'm like, do you know what? I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, 9 out of 10 for me too.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of problems, but I think there were really small issues that I had with the film, so I don't think they're really that important.
No. I think that's really fair. Yeah. You know me, I'm a hard marker.
I know. You're a hard man to please.
But no, I think that's really fair. I mean, for me, as I say, punctuated the end of the festival so well for me, because I was like, oh, that's such a nice way to close, for me, my mind, the festival out. So wonderful.
Oh, just quickly, God's Own Country, you mentioned that earlier. Obviously, that was the previous feature. I think that was his first feature, wasn't it, Francis Lee?
He may have done something before, but I think it was his first major feature, yeah.
I loved that film as well, did you?
I did love it, again, because I thought it was a real palate cleanser against something like Call Me By Your Name, because they came out in a very similar time.
Yeah.
And I love the fact, he's from Yorkshire. It's set in Yorkshire. That's my home, my old stomping ground. It's real. As I say, it's the whole context is set around work. You get up, you work, you do what you need to do, you eat, you sleep, and there's no space for emotion or love, and it's how that creeps in. And as I said, there's elements of that in Ammonite, which I think are brilliant, because hard roles, hard jobs, But yeah, love that movie.
You can definitely see the similarities, though, like you say, those elements in Ammonite too. But it is called Ammonite. One of my favourite films, like I say, at the LFF this year. We've got loads of other films still to review, so make sure you subscribe. Thanks for joining us, Sean. As always, it's been a joy, not a chore.
See you soon.
See you soon. Coming out with all the cliches.